Are you craving pasta but feeling a little bit guilty? Or maybe you're tired of diet rules that leave you hangry and miserable. Get ready to fall in love with carbs again as we talk to Phoebe Lapine. She's the mastermind behind Carbivore, who's about to revolutionize your family's relationship with food. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Phoebe Lapine, and she's a Brooklyn based chef and founder of Feed Me Phoebe, an award winning lifestyle and recipe blog, and author of 4 books. And her most recent book is Carbivore. She combines science backed strategies for managing blood sugar with dishes that feed your cravings. So, thank you so much, Phoebe, for coming on today. I appreciate you being here and speaking with us today, especially about New Year's resolutions. So thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.
If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about you, tell us a little bit about your background and what you love and how you got into this space.
Absolutely. So I originally set out to be a chef and food writer, but around the same time that I quit my corporate day job to pursue those things, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which affects your thyroid gland. And that really pivoted how I approached my career, how I approached my personal health. And since then, I've mostly written books about all the ways I've strived to have my health overlap with my hedonism and find that sweet spot between what nourishes my body and what feeds my spirit.
I'm excited to hear more about that because I don't know that I totally understand, but I think that I will as you get more into it, especially related to things like carbs. They have been the evil thing that everyone talks about for so long. Yeah, I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit more. And I have some questions for you today. Do you mind if I dive into some of those?
Go for it.
Awesome. Let's just start with resolution burnout. So we've all been there and we have these big, elaborate plans for the new year that we are determined will actually work for us this time. And yet it is often very short lived. So, how does your approach to carbs help break this cycle of resolution burnout?
Yeah. So even year round, I've noticed how the low carb movement has completely taken over. And I've just met so many people who have just fallen off the wagon, fallen by the wayside when that strict omission just became unsustainable. And I think that's the thing with these really broad, strict, restrictive diets is that they are not something that was necessarily meant for the long haul. Like keto, another one that's not necessarily totally low carb, but that I've worked with in the past for people with gut issues is the low FODMAP diet. And these are really incredible therapeutic diets. And the data is compelling as a therapeutic diet. And the thing with therapeutic diets is that you're only supposed to be on them for a few weeks. It's not necessarily a lifestyle. And I think we get into such a trap via diet culture of moralizing these choices, of thinking that we have to be super rigid, and then of feeling really bad about ourselves and shameful when we can't fulfill them, when they don't work out for us. I don't personally make New Year's resolutions anymore, but even when I'm trying something new in my own life, I try and think about moderation and about what's actually doable. Or I take them on as a short term sprint. And I wish that's how more people would approach resolutions. Just these platitudes of, I'm going to do X, I'm going to take out all carbs, and instead think about it more in terms of an experiment, because I've always said you can't make healthier choices until you know what choice is healthy for you. And so few of us actually try on something for size before telling us that we have to commit to these absolutely strict, unrealistic changes.
Yeah. I love how you said that. You said you can't make healthy choices until you know it's healthy for you.
Yep.
That's a great way to put it because we are all so different. And yeah, I hate diet culture. I am a personal trainer as well. And just for so long, you just see all the trends the longer you're in at these different spaces, whether it's therapy, whether it's personal training, and you start to really get irritated by them. And I love how your focus is on moderation and doing things that are sustainable long term, because that is honestly truly what's going to work. And that ties right into our conversation about, okay, what is actually going to work for you for New Year's resolution so that they are sustainable. And yeah, maybe we should just stop calling them that.
Rebrand.
Yeah, just short term. Absolutely. So, as busy parents, we often reach for those quick, carb heavy snacks. But what's your tip for making these choices more sustainable, maybe throughout the year?
For me, it's not necessarily about the number of carbs and what type of carb. It's more about adding rather than taking away and strategizing better ways to lean on carbs as a crutch, or not even a crutch, not even as a bad thing, just something that we genuinely enjoy. And a lot of the time, snacks that are shelf stable and easy on the go tend to be carbs. So I would say, first and foremost, I would distinguish, and I wish this was kind of part of the broader conversation around carbs. I would distinguish the difference between a sugary snack and a carby snack, because so many of us could just make a very simple baby step by eliminating the sugary snacks and not worrying about the carbs. I see so many people stressing out about their low carb diet or about keto, and keto maybe less, but going paleo, what have you. And sugar just seems to be this loophole that a lot of people miss. And it's the ingredient that makes a lot of quote unquote healthy snack food, packaged food, taste more like the originals that they're copying from our childhood. And it's not necessarily, again, a step in the right direction. So I would say, first and foremost, if we can shift our snacks away from sugar, amazing. Don't worry about anything else. If you're beyond that point and you are worrying about carbs, I would try and find a way to sneak in something that is quote unquote low carb, or more importantly, the way I'd prefer to think of it is something that includes a lot of fiber, healthy fats, and lean protein. Nuts and seeds or nut mixes are a really good option. And I would eat those before you eat your carby snack. So when we have fiber, healthy fat, and lean protein, it literally slows our carbs roll to our bloodstream. And the idea is not necessarily that carbs are this evil thing. We've subsisted on them. It's a macronutrient. We've subsisted on them for eternity. But even in the more colloquial sense, we think of carbs as like a slang term for starches, which potatoes, bread, corn, rice, all of that jazz. Again, societies have lived on these ingredients for thousands of years. But we do run in the problem in the industrialized food space of having too much of a good thing all at once. So when we're strategizing our carbs, we just want to make sure that we have something in our system to slow them down. We know that when we eat starches without those other things like fiber in there to slow them down, they can reach our bloodstream as quickly as 5 minutes. And certainly simple sugars in drinks and whatnot, also really fast. So when we're snacking, the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that we do have an empty stomach. And whenever possible, I would say it behooves you to be a little bit more conscious of your carbs first thing in the morning, because that is when our stomach is the emptiest, and during snack time. So in between meals, when again, we may have that empty stomach again, because that just means that the carbs will reach our bloodstream that much faster. And the really simple way to avoid that is to just eat something with those other ingredients and then have your carby comfort food quick snack after.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So simple things that we can do to help, and then also shift away from that sugar, eat that fiber, those healthy fats, those lean proteins. Are just simple things. I love those simple answers. So many times we want that magic wand that, just doesn't exist, just sadly.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So many of us struggle with that all or nothing mindset, like we just talked about when it comes to food. How can we maybe embrace those carbs without feeling like we've fallen off the wagon and there's just no hope for us? We're going to be really overweight. Like, change that mindset a little bit.
Yeah. So I would say, first and foremost, start out by not trying to eliminate an entire macronutrient and just take a step in the right direction. I think, again, shifting the mindset to adding instead of taking away can be really powerful. And naturally, when we add things to our plate, we are changing the ratios. So if we're adding more vegetables to our plate, naturally the animal protein and the grains are going to be reduced slightly. Then I would also say, yeah, just not demonizing carbs because that can contribute to a really disordered approach to food, where again, we moralize the good and the bad of various things. And the truth of the matter is that if we eliminated all carbs from our diet or our carbohydrates, if we're talking about the actual macronutrient, that would eliminate all plants. And I think that one of the biggest kind of blanket statements we can make for health, specifically gut health, is that the more diversity on your plate, the better outcomes you're going to have with your microbiome. And your microbiome is such a huge connection to our mental health and to our immune system, to so many different things. So the less that we omit is actually going to bring us closer to this idea of diversifying. And I also think it's an interesting way to pair your carbs with other things. And I call them carb companions in the book, like these ingredients with healthy fats, fiber, and lean protein. If we can focus on adding those carb companions, naturally, the amount of just plain starches on our plate is going to reduce slightly.
So we can find that information out in your book, Carbivore.
Yeah. I have all these nut and seed sprinkles in there that are just so delicious. Like they make any meal better, but they also are full of nuts and seeds and delicious spices that have all sorts of other efficacies. And yeah, they're just a fun way to experiment in the kitchen with that type of moderation.
I love that. I was actually thinking as you're talking about diversifying your plate too. Like, I don't know about you, but in the cold, gray months of the year, I get in this rut where I cook as little as possible. And unfortunately, most of the meals are very like rich, heavy kind of meals. I think my body like naturally wants to have those extra calories,
Absolutely.
foods, all of those things. And yet I don't diversify much because it's just that leftover over and over because I don't really want to cook. I just want to wrap myself in my blanket and hunker down and not expend much energy. So I don't know if you get in that at all.
I do. I absolutely do. But I would say that I do try when I'm making like a big pot of something, a big pot of stew, add as many different types of plants into that stew as possible so then I don't have to worry about it. I do the same thing with my daughter's breakfast. It's like, to me, it's about just the number of plants I can get into a week. So I make this like baked oatmeal that's got spinach pureed into it and some avocado, even sometimes, maybe some cauliflower rice, things and that are then covered with berries. But I like to set myself up for success in certain ways so that I can just find more flexibility the rest of the day, both with her and with myself. Even if it's about just one meal or having one snack a day that you can feel like, oh, I just got like a really great, like balanced handful of something. And the rest of the day, I'm just going to not stress about it too much.
Yeah, I like that. Like in my office, I keep the healthier snacks and just quickly turn to grab something, put something in my mouth. But yeah, the rest of the house, maybe quite as healthy during the winter months. But yeah, I love those little tips that you have. And just a couple of things you said. Don't demonize carbs and focus on those carb companions, which you talk about in your book. And shift away from sugar, which is also hard during the winter months when there's so many celebrations, so many things. Seems like you're taking weeks to just purge your house of all that it's been loaded with throughout the holiday season. Yeah.
I get it.
You're human too, I hope.
Of course. Oh, for sure. That's what my whole brand is about, being human.
I love it. That's probably why it resonates so much. Another question I had for you is kids often mimic our attitude towards food. And how can parents model a healthy relationship with carbs without turning meal times into a battleground?
Yeah. So beyond hiding vegetables and things, which again, like it's a strategy I clearly employ with my baked oatmeal. But I think again, just like adding that variety as much as possible and not letting it be a battleground. If your kid wants to eat the carbs first, it's not the end of the world. Is it the best for your blood sugar? No, but the most important thing is that you're exposing them to as many different types of plants as possible. And even I think for young kids, my daughter's not even 2, even just having the whole food on the plate, if she doesn't eat it, she doesn't eat it. But oftentimes she'll put it in her mouth. And that honestly is a success. That's something that's a baby step that we can all work towards, whether your kid is 5 or it's an adult male at the table. We all have to embrace those baby steps. I think the things that have filtered down to me is as advice around not making mealtime this battleground, is not making your kid feel like they have to please their parents by taking a bite of something, because that can create another disordered reaction to food when it just becomes something that you are managing in order to support parental expectations. We have to all be on our own journey. I have to remind myself that I was really picky about a lot of things when I was younger. And it doesn't mean that I don't love vegetables now. And it doesn't mean that I didn't have adequate nutrition growing up. Yeah, that was a very convoluted answer. But I think, yeah, just treating your child in a more gentle way, treating yourself in a more gentle way, and avoid the hot button moralizing around food at the dinner table, not talking about calories, not talking about focusing, focusing on the positive, which is again how I tell adults to talk to themselves about food too. Add instead of taking away. Don't focus on what's good on the plate versus bad, and have this whole weight between items on the plate. It's one balanced meal on the plate being served. It's not your job to make them eat it.
I really appreciate that because I have the same issues with people demonizing things or how they talk, what they're modeling for their kids. Just this very unhealthy relationship with food oftentimes, and that connects to both personal training and therapy. Like, what are we teaching our kids, and what do we want to do? What are some small shifts that we can do? So I appreciate these small little snippets that you have taught us of how we can change that a little bit because it's quite a process. It's hard to do just overnight.
Yeah, it's hard for me too, as someone who's really just still in the learning process. I catch myself being like, just try one bite for mama, and have to reel it in and be like, no, okay.
Yeah, it can be harder for certain kids too. It's hard to say. I have 4 of them, and mostly they've been pretty good, but sometimes when they start school lunches, then it gets even harder because then they find this, taste for this stuff that I don't love and navigating that, but, those lifelong battles, it seems like that we work through as parents. My last question for you is when it comes to comfort food and maybe cravings that hit really hard, do you have any tricks for satisfying these in a way that align with long-term health goals?
Yeah, one thing I will say, because it was a sub answer to one of your previous questions, is when it comes to blood sugar, especially, but it's true of so many different things. A cycle of 24 hours is not make or break. Like, what happens, what you eat on a given day, it's not going to set you back to square one unless you tell yourself that story. But the reality is, especially with blood sugar, is that it's one very small life cycle. It's about all of these data points over a very long stretch of time. So one of my favorite other sayings is that tomorrow there will always be more kale. And I think we do have to tell ourselves that when we feel we've fallen off the wagon, because the mental monkeying of it all really can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I know it's this blue thing that a lot of people talk about with mindset and food, but in particular with blood sugar, it's really meaningful. When our cortisol levels are higher, our blood sugar is naturally higher. So it doesn't matter what you're eating. When you're stressed about what you're eating, you're already not setting yourself up for success. And this makes sense on a biological level. Of course, when we are in a stressful situation back in the day, that usually meant there was a big animal of some sort that was going to attack us. And not only did we need the mental sharpness that cortisol brings, but we also needed extra energy in our bloodstream to flee that animal. And that's what happens when we use our muscles, we use our body, is that we are gobbling up all of that glucose in our bloodstream. So when we have that same stress response and we're just sitting at our computer, writing a stressful email, or sitting at our table and stressing about this comfort food that we've just eaten or that someone is serving us, it's really best to just take a deep breath and enjoy it as much as you can. And tomorrow will be a new day. And hopefully, that kind of mindset shift, that dropping into rest and digest mode is going to have a better outcome, both for your blood sugar and for your gut health, even if the choices that you're making on your plate are not what you deem to be optimal.
I appreciate that. The rest and digest mentality too, like remembering that if you're stressed, what that's also doing to your body. And there's so many good little tidbits that you had for us today. Yeah. I could share many of them, but do you mind maybe sharing some of your favorite little nuggets of wisdom that you think would help those in this stage of life right now, both as parents and also with a new year and maybe a lot of that pressure we put on ourselves? Maybe something you already said, but how you'd wrap it up. What would you say to us for your parting wisdom?
Yeah. Since we're on the subject of New Year's resolutions, I'll just tie back to what I was originally talking about. So, in my second book, The Wellness Project, I literally created a year-long curriculum for myself, but a different subject matter, a different area of the body every month. And I created one or two small things to change. And it wasn't supposed to be cumulative. It was really about trying on all these different self-care practices on for size. And I think the important thing to remember is that we have to try things, first of all, because they either have to have a really significant impact on our physical health to be worth it, or you have to genuinely enjoy them. And honestly, you can find things that overlap in those categories. Or maybe you'll find something that you're like, wow, I'm feeling like a huge physical transformation and I'm miserable. But maybe it's worth it for you. You'll never know until you do these things with awareness. So, my advice would be instead of New Year's resolutions this year, maybe think about 5 areas where you want to see shifts and say, okay, for 2 weeks, I'm going to do one thing in each of these categories, separate 2 weeks, and do it with intention. Do it with keeping a journal or paying attention or tracking in some way. It doesn't have to be like a hardcore tracking app or Apple Watch or what have you, but just making that intention to pay attention and see where you net out at the end and then make your resolutions if you want to. And I promise you, they won't feel as much like resolutions. You'll know through life experience, through that visceral understanding in your body, what will feel sustainable. Because I guarantee you, the things that are sustainable are the ones where health and hedonism overlap.
And kind of wraps up right into what you said before. I apologize if I get this wrong, but you can't make healthy choices until you know it's healthy for you.
Correct.
Yeah, I think it takes the pressure off of it. So making those maybe those 5 small shifts for maybe 2 weeks intentionally and finding out like, okay, yeah, I like the way that one felt. Maybe I'll try this instead of this weighty, huge thing that feels like torture that is not sustainable long term. I love that. That's beautiful. And Phoebe, where can we find you if we want to check out all of your books? It sounds like you have 4, probably more coming, and your blog. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. You can go to my website, feedmephoebe.com, and then find me everywhere, social media at Phoebe Lapine, just my name. And then carbivorecookbook.com. Highly recommend going there because if you Google it, Carbivore autocorrects to carnivore. Pretty much everywhere you go. Have not been able to cure this in the months since the book came out. So if you want to find a link to buy or to learn more about the book, just go to carbivorecookbook.com.
Awesome. We will check that out. I will also put it in the show notes. And thank you so much again for coming on, Phoebe. We loved having you and to hear a little bit more about how we can have success. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, my friends. Don't forget to check out fulfillmenttherapy.org for our new courses, Ignite Your Life, a personal growth course, as well as Mend Your Marriage, a parenting course that will deepen your personal and emotional and physical intimacy with your spouse and take your relationship to the next level. We also have Find Your Focus that will help you create an online business with flexibility so you can show up and be more present for your family and and work for yourself instead of scrambling to get everything done and going to work when you have a bunch of needs at home. So, if that is something you are interested in, check it out on fulfillmenttherapy.org. Both our mental health and wellness courses and our business courses and more are coming. All right, my friends, I'll see you back here so soon. Thanks for listening.